Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Not Scrum Done podcast. I am Andriana Marshall, and that is
I am Grand Scrum Master Scott.
we are professional Scrum trainers at scrum.org, and we are doing our Q&A series where you ask a question. You can email us, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn, you can leave comments on this video, and we will answer them. Also in the comments and turn it into a video. So we got another submitted comment today. And this one is from Andy. Thank you so much, Andy, for the comment. We've already responded in the comments, but we thought this was a good one to actually create a video on. So he asked the following question. Can the developers update the work, product backlog items, and smaller work items in the sprint backlog on their own, or do they have to come to an agreement with the product owner? I'm unsure about the answer because the Scrum Guide says the sprint backlog is a plan by and for the developers. It is highly visible, real-time picture of the work that the developers plan to accomplish during the sprint in order to achieve the sprint goal. Consequently, the sprint backlog is updated throughout the sprint as more is learned. My interpretation, this is Andy's interpretation of the statement, would be that developers can do any changes on their own, but when I took a look at the statement as developers, this is also part of the Scrum Guide, as the developers work during the sprint, they keep the sprint goal in mind. If the work turns out to be different than expected, they collaborate with the product owner to negotiate the scope of the sprint backlog within the sprint without affecting the sprint goal. It seems that if the developers want to make changes in the sprint backlog, they have to come to an agreement with the product owner first. I would love to see how you would approach this question. All right, Scott, what do you got for Andy?
Woo! First of all, Andy, thank you so much for referencing the Scrum Guide. Oh my goodness, that's beautiful. Shout outs to you and everybody else that does that as well. That lets us know that, hey, you did try to dive and find the answer. And this is another reason why you want to just, touch base with other people and just collaborate on terms of what the interpretation is. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Can the developers update the work product backlog items and smaller work items in the sprint backlog on their own? Or do they have to come to an agreement with the product owner? Andy Scrum and everyone else is all about ownership. I'm going to answer your question with the question. Let's go down this learning journey. Who owns the product backlog? Who owns the sprint backlog? Now, your specific question is about the sprint backlog, which is owned by the developers. So if there's something that they identify they need to create and put in the sprint backlog, they don't need permission from the product owner to do that. However, if we're trying to be very transparent on the Scrum team and let's say have more collaboration, hey, product owner, I did this because of this. It's related to the sprint goal. I'm gonna pause there, and Adriana, because I know you got some sauce you want to put in there. I don't want to take it all.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's very interesting. The part with negotiate, it does become a little sticky because when you're reading it, it becomes challenging. So I get exactly where Andy's coming. I would say a real world example that I have that I can think of right now is the developers. We were creating a profile, and the developers were looking at what was specified to create, and then they came back with here are the challenges with creating that, and here's why we need to change something else. So instead of surprising the product owner at sprint review, they're having a discussion about what needs to change and why it needs to change and working through those issues. Now, I've also seen some product owners say, okay, I get what you're saying, and that this new feature is going to take now 2-3 extra sprints because of it, and they've said fine, I don't care, we'll do the hard work. And there's others that are saying, okay, that's kind of a lot, let's actually do as you're suggesting. Or sometimes developers will come up with 2 or 3 alternative solutions and work with the product owner. So I think it's very context specific. Your example is like, we own it, we can change it. On the other hand, if you're changing entirely how the feature looks or how it functions, you do need to work with the product owner because there is a reason that they came up with that idea, and that's the proper time to negotiate it.
I totally agree. Those are all beautiful examples. The example I was thinking of is just a little bit slightly different than that. I was teaching the PSM 1 class yesterday, and we have an exercise where you actually create a product backlog. It's kind of like building autonomous driving for everyone else, that you don't have to have an electric vehicle. Now, I've never had a student that created that product backlog that put in what car are we going to test this on. Now, so let's assume that developers have already created their sprint backlog. We know that the Scrum Guide says that the product backlog will emerge. Also, so will the sprint backlog. It will emerge, meaning that we may not have everything we need to get to our sprint goal, but the events in Scrum will help us discover that. So let's say we doing a 2-week sprint, and let's say a week into the sprint, the developers are at Daily Scrum and they say, hey, y'all, we forgot. We building this prototype. We building this here auto drive prototype, and we haven't figured out what car or truck or SUV we're going to test this on. Well, if they're at Daily Scrum having this conversation, the first question becomes, is it in the product backlog? If it's in the product backlog, of course, they're quite naturally going to go, we need to talk to the product owner. But let's say we know it's not in the product backlog because we all forgot it. So while they're at Daily Scrum, when they make this discovery, then they can go to the sprint backlog. Since they are in their house, they own it, and create it and put it there. Now, as Andriana and I have been saying, would they just want to make that decision? Because think about it. When we get to the sprint review, it won't be done because the testing won't be done. So that's going to be an impact on the product owner. The product owner is looking for this here, let's say, auto drive feature to be working, to be tested, to be ready to deploy if the product owner chooses so. And if we don't get to that point, there might be some surprises. We don't want any surprises. Hopefully that helps.
All right. Thanks for watching. If you made it to the end of this video, you are legendary and have a greater attention span than a goldfish. You can check out our links in the description on how to connect with us, how to get in the Discord, and more resources on how you can continue learning. Thanks, everyone. Stay legendary.